Welcome to another interview in our series, Hard Facts About Soft Skills. I'm Linda Katz-Wilner of Successfully Speaking, and I'm thrilled to have with me Gerry Sandusky.
Great to be with you today.
Great, and this is Gerry with a G, right?
Gerry with a G, no relation. Boom, we can move on.
We had to get that understood. Many of you in the Maryland area know Gerry Sandusky. He's a sports broadcaster. You may not know that he's also a speaker and a presentation and media coach. What I learned recently at a recent presentation that I went to is that Gerry is also a co-founder of a new application, an evaluation tool called Trigger. And when I heard about it, it sounded like this is exactly what we need for soft skills. So Gerry, tell me a little bit about Trigger.
So Trigger was born, Linda, you know, as a speaker and as a coach, you travel around the country and you see a lot of different people and you have the great blessing of being in a lot of different organizations. So over the period of time, I noticed that one of the consistent pain points in any company, any size, is that feeling about end of the year employee evaluations. Mm-hmm. People don't like them, managers don't like them, employees don't like them. People essentially feel like it's a waste of time. Time is so precious. Mm-hmm. So I was just kind of looking at it, and having grown up in sports, I knew the way sports has for years now done evaluations. And the principle in sports is micro. It's micro evaluation, micro feedback on a very short cycle, weekly cycle, sometimes daily cycle, sometimes hourly cycle. But the idea is micro evaluation, micro feedback, quantum growth in performance. And so I started to take some of the principles that I knew from sports and apply them to business for a speaking engagement I was doing. And I was explaining why certain players who disappear from the league never get re-signed, even though they have talent, they have production, is because you're evaluated on production, attitude, and maintenance. And maintenance is what you cost an organization, professionally, socially, financially, and emotionally. If you hurt the brand, it doesn't matter how good you are, there's a scale there. And so I was just explaining this in a talk, and an executive came up and said, "That's the best talent evaluation tool I've ever seen." I said, "Well, it's not a tool, it's just like a whiteboard explanation." Mm-hmm. He said, no, you have to develop that into a tool. So I started to kind of doodle with it, and then I made an Excel spreadsheet, and then I met my partner, Lisa First Willis, whose background is HR, and she helped to take the concept and developed it into a tool. It became a platform, it became a company, and it just grew legs, and it's running.
That's wonderful.
How's that for a journey?
And what does it measure?
So it measures, as the leader of an organization, it gives you an instant visual landscape of your talent. So it measures who your in-play players are, the players most likely to leave your organization who you want to keep. It measures your A players, B players, C players, and what we call replacement players. Mm-hmm. People in your organization that you have to figure out how do we either move them up, move them over, or move them out, because they're going to hurt your brand if they're not doing it already.
And that reminds me, I happen to be somebody who loves words, loves acronyms, and ways to remember things. And you talked about 5 words that all end in ATE. So that stuck with me.
Good.
I don't think it works as an acronym, but certainly they're all verbs. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, because I discovered in watching coaches over the years, my father was a longtime NFL coach. I grew up a ball boy on the sidelines of the NFL. Managers are coaches. Mm-hmm. Coaches are teachers. You get different labels, but they're all doing the same thing. They're responsible for helping to develop the talent that is under their purview. So as I looked at this, it dawned on me that coaches, teachers, and managers all do one of 5 things with the people who are under them. You either appreciate, elevate, motivate, educate, or eliminate. And that's it. And so when you think about it, all of your work with people is a combination of those 5. And if you want to be somebody who has a little bit broader view of eliminate, you can think of it as reevaluate. Move them up, move them over, move them out. If you don't want it to be hardcore and say out.
Right.
But some again, culture, I don't like to dictate your culture. Mm-hmm. And some cultures are you're in, you're out. Others are, hey, you're in, now let's find a better fit for you. Mm-hmm. Either way it works. And
when I heard you speak, I know you mentioned it was like a scorecard.
It is. So it's a very simple app that you just answer a couple of questions, and then the algorithm that we developed for the app does all the work for you, and it identifies, okay, this employee is a C player. Here's why they're a C player. Here is a list of some actions you might kind of consider. Okay, this is somebody you need to educate. They need to understand what it takes to be a B player. You need to build them a plan. And what we did with the tool was we created the back end of the tool, which we call the what now, what next. And that was from customer feedback. Customers would say, great, Gerry. We now know we have 80% C players. What now? So we built a knowledge center for them. And the knowledge center is very much focused on the fact that the attention span of the average North American is 7 seconds long. And that's because we're all rushed. Everybody is under time pressure. So we built these little bite-sized nuggets for managers to go to and say, what do I do with these people? How do I make my C's better players? How do I make them better employees? How do I make them B's? We've given them checklists, we've given them ideas, we've given them links, videos, TED Talks, all different resources that can help busy managers maximize the people they're working with what little time they have.
So it becomes an educational platform
Yes.
as well. And I'm assuming the employees like it because they're not waiting to find out that
Love it.
this was a problem for 6 months and you never told me.
And one of the groups of employees that has driven this are millennials. And people have this really like hair on the back of their neck feeling about millennials. And I love millennials. I raised 2 of them. I think millennials could be our next great generation because they grew up in the digital age. And because they grew up in the digital age, Linda, you and I grew up in the analog age. So if we did a project and we waited 9 months to hear how we did on it, we're kind of used to it. It's the way it was. Well, the people who grew up in the digital age, they don't wait for the 11 o'clock news. They just look on their phone. They don't have to wait till their stockbroker calls them to see what a stock price is. It's on their phone.
Right.
They want to know what the weather is. It's on their phone. It's instant feedback. So a millennial does not want to work on a project, pour herself into that project, and then wait 11 months to find out how she's doing in the organization. The big myth on millennials is people think, oh, they want another trophy. They want it easy. That's not true. They want feedback, and it's not because they're selfish. It's because that's how they grew up. Trigger addresses that. We didn't build it for millennials, but after we built it, we discovered, wow, this is a great tool. And guess what? By 2023, millennials are the majority of the workforce.
Right now they're not, but it
They're
certainly
coming.
is changing. Tell me how you came up with the word trigger.
So Trigger, the name actually evolved. We used to call it the PAM scale, production, attitude, and maintenance, and that was just the working title. Trigger came when we realized that the essence of this tool is not the software. It's not even the algorithm, it's not the magic of the screen, all those things we love. The essence of the tool is that it triggers the conversations between managers and employees that builds relationship, that drives productivity. That's why it's called Trigger.
Okay. And I remember when I heard you speak, you spoke even about the athlete who then watches the game films afterwards, and how valuable that is. It's a similar concept of just watching it and change.
Micro-evaluation, micro-feedback. So you're a pro football player, and you play your game Sunday. You know Monday morning you're sitting in the film room with a coach watching the tape of that game. Matter of fact, you know on Tuesday's practice, you're watching the practice tape with the coach Tuesday afternoon. When people know they're being evaluated, they rise to the occasion. You know, it's been known for a long time. Most people will rise to your level of expectation. When an employee knows you're paying attention, they tend to pay attention too. And not in a big brother way, but more in a synergistic way of, look, you actually care, you're paying attention to what I'm doing, well then I'll care too. Most employee lack of engagement comes from working in a culture and environment where they feel like everybody around them is not engaged. Well, if you're a manager who's engaged in developing your people will suddenly become much more engaged in their own development too.
Right, that makes sense.
Right.
And you pay attention to me, I'm going to perform differently than if I know. Sometimes in some companies I've heard this annual performance review doesn't even happen at the year anniversary.
And so what happened was, we've seen this move in the last 5-10 years, bigger companies. Some people said, we're just going to get rid of the employee evaluation process. And the reason for that is they recognize it's a waste of time and it's a waste of money. What they didn't recognize is it's the missed opportunity. Communications has these principles, and we see them everywhere. If you write your team 1 email a year and it's 46 paragraphs, they're not going to get anything out of that. If you write them 46 one-paragraph emails over the course of the year, you'll build the relationship. And that's the concept behind Trigger. It's just short intervals, quick cycle, a lot of touch points, and that's how relationships grow. I don't care if it's when you were dating your husband, it still are, I hope, whether you're spending time with your kids. My philosophy as a parent was, I used to bristle when people say, oh, I'm spending quality time with my kids. Really? How do you know? My philosophy as a parent was spend quantity time with your kids and the quality will emerge. Well, it's no different in the employer-employee, manager-employee relationship. You got to spend time with your people for that quality to emerge. And once that quality emerges, now you start to build a quality relationship, and that's where the magic happens.
And it's just showing you care. results.
Bottom line.
It's
Simple
not just
human
a job.
connection.
It's not just a
Exactly.
job to fill out that form. And a point you made, which is really important, is that when we get these long, and even with emails, when it's not even a performance review, we get the long emails, we don't read it. I coach a lot of my clients to just make it short, get to the point, and don't start adding all this information because it will all get lost in the email.
And a big part of the science behind that is when your brain sees a long email, your brain tells you subconsciously, I don't have time for this, which raises your level of anxiety, which floods your body with adrenaline, which is a negative stimulus. And once you've experienced that once, your brain is on the lookout for that same situation. So the next long email, same reaction. So that's why people hate year-end reviews, because they're super time-consuming. They have the experience that they haven't worked, and they're just checking a box, and they're doing whatever they have to do to be part of the corporate policy. Well, nobody's improved that way. No coach ever made a player great that way. No teacher ever elevated a student's performance. No piano teacher ever made a virtuoso student because they just checked boxes. And nobody in business has done it either.
Right. So business, as I think you mentioned, business is catching up with sports.
Very much so.
Sports is addressing
Sports has done this for 7 decades. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is I've grown up in a world where I know it works. I've seen it firsthand. I've literally been there my whole life.
Well, tell us that story, because
So
that was
in
a great story.
1950, the Cleveland Browns are an expansion franchise in the NFL, and they win the NFL championship. First expansion franchise ever to win one of the big 4 sports championships: football, baseball, hockey, basketball. It's never been done since. And the reason it was done was Paul Brown, the namesake of the Cleveland Browns, the head coach, had introduced 3 innovations that no one had ever seen in football before: the playbook, training camp, and film study. He was the first coach to film the games on Sunday, watch the film with his players on Monday. Micro-evaluation, micro-feedback. By the end of the year, that team had made quantum improvement. They lapped everybody, they beat everybody, they win the NFL championship. Well, that creates a whole trend. Now, everybody in the NFL not only films games, they videotape practices. Some videotape workout sessions. They videotape as much as they can so that they have more data for micro-evaluation and micro-feedback. Now, granted, you can take this too far, but as long as you adhere to the principle within your culture and have more touch points, it's the same principle as one 46-paragraph email or 46 one-paragraph emails. Same content, same data, same volume, but totally different impact.
And it's no different than going on the driving range and videoing your golf swing.
Right.
And right away you say, oh, there is a lot that I have to change. But if you wait and never do that, it doesn't help to wait for another week to have a lesson, or just go out and play and figure it out.
You know, as a speaker and a communicator, because you've put in the work to do this. But when people first get in front of the camera, when they first get on stage in front of an audience, they're bringing their perceptions. They see themselves the way they perceive they're doing. The audience sees what they're really doing. And until you learn to see yourself the way the audience sees you, you are just wasting time. And it's the same thing in a manager-employee relationship.
And I do the same thing when I work with people. I video them, they watch themselves, and right away they say,
I don't sound like that.
Well, of course they say that, but it's like, some of this isn't so bad, right? I don't look as bad as I thought. So we need to see it from the other person's perspective. Just like you said, even with the phone, you hear it. Everybody hears it differently than we hear it ourselves.
Correct.
And there are scientific reasons for that. But we need to know what everybody else is seeing, what everybody else is hearing, and then we can tweak it, because then we start to see it from that perspective.
Because at the end of the day, it's about the relationship. And trigger triggers the action, the conversation, the follow-up that builds relationship, that builds trust, that builds insight. And when you have a team built with trust, insight, powerful things like that, man, you're hard to beat.
Now, Gerry, tell us how you can find out more about Trigger.
Easiest way to do is go to the website, trigger123.com, and we call it trigger123.com because it is as easy as 1, 2, 3 to buy it, to implement it, to use it, and to see all the benefits from it.
Okay, great. Because I know there's a lot of information there, and I think you can even download some information.
Oh, you can download information. We have free reports. We have videos that explain the tool. We have videos that walk you through the tool step by step. We'll show you how to use the mobile app. And again, the key thing is this. I'm an analog guy. I grew up in the analog age. I love digital tools. But the big thing is it's not some magical, the magic isn't in the software. The software is designed very elegant. It's fast, easy, and mobile. And what we did was we made sure it's a platform that for managers, not just the company that buys it, but for the managers who use it, it's a short learning curve. You'll get up to speed really fast. You can integrate it into your daily life cycle, your work cycle. There's no heavy lift here, because I recognize that you are the busiest person in the world. and so is everybody else. And we're all facing that time pressure. So I'm not looking to put more things on your plate. I'm looking to actually free up some time with a tool that is easy to use.
Great. Now, at every interview, I ask this question, and this is very relevant for you, of course. What are the hard facts about soft skills? Because I started talking soft skills, and we haven't used that word again, but I know this is what we're talking about.
So the hard facts is soft skills are the hardest skills to learn, because for most people who think of them as soft skills, they have a hard time measuring them. People love to measure easy to enumerate metrics. It's easy to show the ROI on an investment in a mutual fund. It's easy to show what your 40 time has done over a period of training for 6 months to get ready for the NFL Combine. It's less accessible for most people to say, how are my communication skills doing? How are my relationship building skills doing? How are things like trust and integrity doing? So those are harder to apply metrics. So I would say those are the hard facts of soft skills.
So the exciting thing, and that's exactly what happened when I heard you speak, I said, my goodness, these are the hard facts about soft skills. Because people, over the years, I think just calling them soft skills make them sound like they're not that important.
Wishy-washy, you can look over your shoulder. No. These are the ones you really want to pay attention to, because the hard data, that's easy to measure. This is where you really need to put your attention, because here's the other great discovery in the digital age. 15 years ago, if you wanted to use your phone, you didn't have a smartphone. The only people who had smartphones were people who were running high-end technology companies, billionaires. Well, the head of Apple has the same phone you might have. You have access to the same tools as the president of Microsoft. That has never happened before in American history, which means technology isn't a difference maker anymore. It leveled the playing field. So the difference maker, soft skills.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be what separates people and organizations and companies and teams from this point forward.
And they say 85% of the people are hired on their soft skills, not their hard technical skills.
One of the things I teach in my seminars, in my presentation skills seminars, is that the pathway to connection is not intellect to intellect. We have to connect emotionally first. If we connect emotionally, then and only then will I open up and give you access to my brain. If we don't connect emotionally, I'm just going to create a perception of you, and I will build a blockade that, nope, you're wrong, I'm not listening to you, and I'll tune you out. I'm on my phone, I'm moved on, my attention span's somewhere else. If we don't connect first emotionally, we don't get access to the pipeline.
And that's why I also coach people and say, think about speaking heart to heart.
Totally.
Because if you're speaking like this, I'm not fully connected with you as much. And here I can't turn completely.
But we're still open to each other.
But if you're open to people and you think of your heart facing the person or your heart facing the audience, not the slides behind you, you're going to be a good presenter. That's another whole interview, right? On how, to present things. But it's been a pleasure having you here. It's great information. I know everybody else will appreciate it. And everybody should check out Trigger, because it's a great way to look at the hard facts about soft skills. And Gerry, I thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being here.
Great.